Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. And honestly, we're going to shatter a very comfortable illusion about the future of work today. For decades, we've relied on this specific, rigid structure to get things done, basically assuming it was just a natural law of business. But today, we're looking at the hard data, and we're going to realize that the very foundation of how companies are managed is undergoing an absolute seismic shift. I mean, we are literally moving from an era of pure coordination to an era of exception design.
Let's actually start with a pretty blunt provocation, because the reality is that traditional middle management, which, let's face it, was built almost entirely on the need for coordination, is practically obsolete. The source material hits the nail on the head here. It says, if your leadership tells you your job is safe because AI is just a tool, they're lying. Kindly maybe, but they're lying for sure. The honest truth is, the middle layer of the traditional firm was designed for a world where coordination was just incredibly expensive. Managers had to manually translate strategy into actual work, move info up and down the chain, run endless status meetings, enforce approvals, the whole shebang.
And well, that brings us to this absolutely staggering number, 80 to 90%. That represents the massive chunk of coordination work that is now entirely within an AI agent's capability for practically zero cost. Just think about that for a second. Most of those approval chains, the weekly status updates, the manual information relays from the bottom to the top, they're just the transaction costs of running a hierarchy, and AI collapses those costs to basically nothing.
So here's our roadmap to navigate all this. First, the end of coordination. Second, post-hierarchy proof. Third, the exception architect. Fourth, the caste system warning. And finally, number 5, the bridge curriculum. All right, diving right into section 1, the end of coordination. AI absorbs routine. Look at all these mundane tasks basically being eaten by AI right now. Routine reporting, task routing, workflow handoffs, status visibility, basic approvals, escalation triage. I mean, these were the exact things that kept middle managers busy for 40 hours a week. In a major April 2026 diagnostic by McKinsey, they found that because these tasks are just vanishing, 75% of roles need fundamental reshaping right now. And yes, that includes team leaders and everyone reporting to them. The big takeaway here is that job descriptions are literally being rewritten from scratch. What this means for us is that the operational roles we rely on today, they fundamentally will not exist in the same way 12 months from now.
Moving on to section 2, post-hierarchy proof, real-world scale.
Now, you might be thinking this is all theoretical, but it's not. Hair, that massive Chinese appliance manufacturer, actually proved a post-hierarchy model could scale way back in 2012. They did this by breaking their 80,000 employees into thousands of microenterprises. Fast forward to early 2026, and Block, driven by Jack Dorsey and Roelof Botha, aggressively moved to dissolve their middle management relay. They shifted entirely to individual contributors, directly responsible individuals or DRIs, and player coaches. So no more middle layer whose only job is to route and summarize info. And they definitely aren't alone here. By mid-2026, Coinbase publicly capped its hierarchy at just 5 layers between the CEO and individual contributors. This brilliantly illustrates a core concept. Corporate hierarchy is not a law of physics, right? It's simply a coordination technology. And right now, AI is proving to be a vastly superior one.
Just to underline the real urgency of this shift, over 150,000 tech and corporate roles were cut in just the first half of 2026 alone. And if you look closely at that labor data, those cuts disproportionately hit the middle layers. See, when agents handle routine coordination, the human management ratio completely inverts. You need far fewer managers, they suddenly have much wider spans of control, and those surviving roles, well, they have to fundamentally change.
Which brings us to section 3, the exception architect. Because the obvious question is, if coordination is dead, what do the humans actually do?
This comparison right here brilliantly illustrates the pivot. Think about the regional sales director back in 2024. They spent their whole day in alignment meetings, doing manual discount approvals, maybe reviewing strategy slides everyone had already seen a dozen times. Honestly, maybe 2 decisions all day actually required real human judgment. Now, contrast that with the pod leader of 2027. They check a dashboard where AI agents have already routed leads and adjusted pricing. So instead of routing work, the human investigates an anomaly the AI flagged. They coach their team through ambiguity. They spend their entire day on judgment calls, building relationships, and handling the weird exceptions. It's the exact same title, but a completely different job. We're talking 50 times wider scope, but with 90% fewer manual tasks. As this operational breakdown shows, management absolutely must shift its focus.
We have to move entirely from the routine execution of the past to high sigma judgment and exception design in the future. Instead of relaying information up and down the ladder, you're interpreting it for narrative coherence. Instead of manual gatekeeping, checking boxes for approvals, you're auditing agent outcomes and validating safe autonomy thresholds. Instead of just scheduling sprints, you're mentoring teams through novel, tricky problems that fall way outside of trained patterns. The 90% of the job that used to be coordination, poof, it's gone. The 10% that was judgment, that becomes the entire job.
Let's hit Section 4, the caste system. Warning. This is crucial, guys, because what happens to a company if we totally mess this massive transition up?
Well, in a 2026 enterprise survey, a massive 77% of executives admitted they are already excluding non-AI proficient staff from leadership consideration. That's huge. We know AI superusers are 5 times more productive and earn significantly more. If a company doesn't actively manage this transition, a natural, incredibly dangerous sorting happens. The inner ring of AI superusers closes its ranks, compounding its advantages, while the outer ring of non-adopters simply gets laid off.
And that leads to what the source text calls caste formation. Basically, a bifurcated company totally split into AI elites and displaced coordinators. Now you might be thinking, well, isn't that just meritocracy in action? No way. Actually, it's an enormous operating risk for the business. See, middle managers hold deep, tacit field knowledge in their heads. If you simply lay them off instead of transitioning them, you lose the crucial data that feeds your AI's learning loops. Driving faster information flow without proper governance and human wisdom, that is quite literally a fuse waiting for a spark.
All right, Section 5, the bridge curriculum, rebuild the workforce. Let's talk solutions.
We prevent that disastrous caste system by deploying what's called the bridge curriculum. These 5 components, stack rotation, elicitation apprenticeship, promotion path porosity, junior loop reconstruction, and a caste formation early warning system have to be run concurrently, and they must be funded as core organizational infrastructure. Make no mistake, this isn't just some basic HR training afterthought, it's a full-on exercise in asset optimization, and it's funded directly by the savings you get from automating those old workflows. Let's break down exactly how these steps work.
So steps 1 and 2 are all about capturing the human magic before it just walks out the door. Stack rotation means every middle layer human spends a quarter embedded in the AI intelligence stack as an operator. They learn exactly how it behaves under load until they can confidently write a charter for an AI agent. Then in the elicitation apprenticeship, they get paired with an AI agent that extracts their operating logic, their rhythms, their decisions, how they handle friction, you name it. The final deliverable? A codified operating manual. These first 2 steps ensure that the deep, tacit field knowledge held by your managers is successfully extracted right into the enterprise infrastructure, instead of being lost forever. Step 3 is promotion path porosity. You have to guarantee a clear path from the outer ring to the inner ring. Companies must actively measure the percentage of inner ring roles filled by humans who started in the outer ring recently. The absolute minimum target here is 30%. And we have to measure this porosity carefully, because if that metric drops below 20%, that is your glaring leading indicator of devastating caste lock-in. It means your organization has literally stopped functioning as an escalator for talent and has turned into a locked fortress.
Finally, steps 4 and 5. Think about this for a second. If AI is doing all the entry-level tasks, how did junior employees ever learn the business well enough to become senior judges? Well, Junior Loop Reconstruction solves this by creating dedicated learning rotations, specifically pairing new hires with senior operators and AI elicitation agents. We completely have to redesign how juniors learn. And lastly, the early warning system. This means tracking metrics like the adoption gap and voluntary exit profiles right up at the board level. Because if your top AI adopters are quitting, you are actively losing your future inner ring to competitors. And that's a critical governance failure.
And that really brings us to the ultimate crossroads for every single organization looking at this shift. The middle of your firm is either going to be redesigned around exceptions and judgment using a bridge curriculum, or it is going to dissolve into a fractured, 2-caste structure of AI elites and managed-out non-adopters. There is zero middle ground here, no third state. The coordination era is over, period. So the only provocative question left to ask yourself today is this: will you actively redesign your firm on purpose, or will you just let a caste system pick you?